Hello, friends, and welcome in to The Lord and the Rings. I'm Justin, and I'm wondering if the Shepherd of Trees, Fangorn himself, Treebeard, can help us as we think about this mingling of two worlds, Middle Earth with the Bible, with Christian spiritual formation. Is there a line, is there a quote that he gets at that he's tapping into something massive, something profound? And the answer, of course, is yes. I'll get to the quote in a second, but the full quote. But it's the clause we want to focus on here is it is something to have started. Oh man, that's going to free us up. So we are going to talk about Treebeard for a moment. There's nobody like him. He is a walking legend, a walking library. He is the shepherd of the forest. And so I want to explain a little bit about the Ents before we dive in. We know that they are tree-like creatures. They live for thousands of years. They live for ages. And they became more and more like the trees that they herded, which I think is actually really cool. That's their purpose. They are the shepherds of the trees. They varied in height and size and colorings and even the number of fingers and toes. In the third age, we find them only in Fangorn Forest with Treebeard as the clear leader. We know the Ent wives are gone, and so there's a sadness to them. There is a loss, but they are strong, and they, spoiler alert, they end up marching against Isengard. But the lesson today that I want to look into is, well, this is them attacking Isengard, by the way. Really cool. There is a quote when they are deciding with Merry and Pippin present, if they are going to march against Isengard or remain isolationists, Treebeard has this quote, and he says this: "Let them march now and sing. We have a long way to go, and there is time ahead for thought. It is something to have started." Now, when he says let them, he's referring third person to the Ents. They are marching to war. They are taking action, but it's not panic. You see, it's not blurry. There is time ahead for thought. We are on the move, but it's not this hustle bustle, blurry blood frenzy. They are thinking because it's a long journey. There's a long way to go, but then we get the gem. It is something to have started. And I'm just wondering if maybe you needed to hear that today. Like really, let's be honest. I'm struck by it because many of us are frozen right now. I don't know if it's this cultural moment or if it's a human thing, but a lot of times it's just easy to be paralyzed and we're just unable to start. Like it doesn't even have to be a new year. It can be something small like diet or exercise, but it can be deepening Bible study. If you're a follower of Jesus, perhaps it's that first step of translating a dream into real life, or it's picking up a hobby, or it's working the courage to ask a girl out. I don't know what it is, but this is a theme in Tolkien's writing, starting. It is something to have started. It's not everything. It's not everything to have started, but it is something. And for us, hustle bustle, anxiety-driven folk, that's remarkable. And so I think as you think about Tolkien and his words fueled by a biblical understanding of grace, grace isn't a free ticket to sin. It's an undeserving lavish of favor from God in Christ that actually motivates us towards obedience, towards starting. And so I have here all these things around the professor in that failing is okay in the Christian worldview because there's grace. Succeeding in the Christian worldview is okay, which often can be even more dangerous than failing because then we don't need God. I'm quite fine by myself, thank you very much, because there is grace. And so I think this idea from Treebeard on it is something to have started. Is it okay to start? What if I fail? What if I falter? It can help us from, the paralysis, the bustle, failure, fear, anxiety, success, all of these things. And we do see it as a theme because we have a line over here, and we know this one. It's a dangerous business, Frodo, going out your door. You step onto the road, and if you don't keep your feet, there's no knowing where you might be swept off to. Again, we all know it's a long way for the hobbits, but it is something to have started. So I hope that's helpful. I want to connect this real quick to what it's like following Jesus. Because as we follow Jesus, it's intimidating because it's like, man, I'm a total spiritual moron. Like I'm an idiot and I'm following Jesus. So Am I unqualified because I stray? If I'm on point and I feel like I'm obeying super well, am I better than everyone else? Like, this is really difficult. And so what is it like? Well, if you're a spiritual moron like me, I want to look at a favorite scene in the New Testament towards the end of the Gospels where we see Jesus resurrect. Well, before I get here, let me just talk. Jesus resurrects, okay? He dies on the cross. He's dead until Sunday. He resurrects, and he makes 5 resurrection appearances that Sunday. He makes 5 more over the next 40 days. And my personal favorite is from John chapter 21, verses 9 to 14. I guess maybe I'll read the whole thing. Yeah, I'm going to read the whole thing. And it's just crazy. If you'll stick with me, I think this will bless you. Here we go. When they got out on land, they saw a charcoal fire in place. This is the disciples. They're on the Sea of Tiberias with fish laid out on it. So the disciples are fishing, right? And then, here, I'll zoom in a little bit. I hope you can read that. And Jesus said to them, bring some of that fish that you just caught. And so Simon Peter went aboard and hauled the net ashore, full of large fish, 153. And although there were so many, the net was not torn. And Jesus said to them, come and have breakfast. It's one of my favorite verses, literally, in the entire Bible, because it's Jesus just saying, hey, come, eat, be with me. If you remember, this is how Jesus first called them, is this miracle on the sea with fishing, and now he's been dead. The disciples obey him, and they go to Galilee, and now they're fishing, and they're just like, what just happened to our lives? Jesus is dead, or is he alive? What's going on? So then he, I think in the coolest way ever, kind of calls back to the inside joke. Like, this is how I called you to be my disciples. He does the same thing again. And what do? They say in verse 12, who are you? But they knew it was the Lord. And Jesus came and took the bread and gave it to them. And so with the fish. And this was now the 3rd time that Jesus was revealed to the disciples after he was raised from the dead. Now, we know where Tolkien got so much of his inspiration, right? Come and have breakfast. So Jesus makes a fire, prepares breakfast. He's revealing himself to the disciples. And then they realize that the resurrection has changed everything. But at the same time, it's changed nothing. But then, and I'm not going to read it, we get this moment. You can read on in John 21, where Jesus has a moment with Peter, because what's the last thing Peter did? He denied Jesus 3 times around a fire. And so then Jesus asks Peter, here we are on the beach. He asked Peter 3 questions around a fire. Do you love me? Do you love me? Do you love me? Jesus affirms him 3 times. And what's significant about that? 3 denials, 3 questions around a fire, around a fire. Jesus is absolutely recommissioning Peter. Peter, who had disqualified himself, was in total shame, had totally made a bonehead move, and actually a pretty evil move, to take care of yourself and not lay yourself down for the God-man who just laid himself down for you. What Jesus does is he sets up Peter and sends Peter out in grace. That is the foundation of ministry. That is the foundation of Christianity, is this grace. He can either continue on in shame, which is what many of us do in our sin, or it is something to have started. You see where Treebeard really starts to, like, his wisdom starts to matter. I don't know where you're at spiritually. If you're trying to be an isolationist, like Treebeard, you're done with church, it's just me and Jesus. Or you're feeling like a total failure. You know you're in sin. You know you're straying. You have no concept, no compass of grace, of who Jesus is. Or if you follow Jesus, but you're just a total moron and you stray a lot. Maybe you feel like Aragorn and everything you do recently, like, Aragorn at the beginning of Two Towers, everything's going amiss. You know that you're making mistakes. Maybe you're like Pippin. You just know you're a fool. For me, at least right now in this season, I freeze up all the time. The pathway, the road before me, it's daunting. It's too much. But Treebeard's voice just rings in my ear. It is something to have started. And that would be my encouragement to you guys. It is something to start. In grace, you and I can start. It's not everything. We got to finish. We've got to endure throughout. But grace brings us to the starting line. It carries us through the march, and it brings us to the end as well as we stay close to Jesus. We all need a start today, a fresh start. We all need some grace. In Christ, we drown in an ocean of that. Blessed is the man who never stops starting over. Or as Treebeard would say, it is something to have started. But let's not be hasty, right? Well, hey, this was a video that I hope you enjoyed the mingling of these two amazing worlds, the created world and the sub-created world of real world Earth with Jesus and Tolkien's Middle Earth. Please subscribe, watch another video, and I'll see you guys. Oh, and comment. I'd love to make a conversation out of this. Bye.